All right, everyone, I'd like to call the meeting, the finance meeting of May 12th to order. Begin with the roll call. I guess I'll start over. I'd like to call the finance meeting of May 12th to order and begin with the roll call. Denise McGraw.
Here.
Rosemary Jakewith.
Here.
John Delarada. Did I hear John? William McPartlin.
Here.
Supervisor Syed.
Here.
The town attorney, Paul Briggs.
Here.
I heard Michelle Martinelli. Bill is running the show. Diane, I heard, and Eric Hamburger.
Here.
Okay. Are there any other persons attending that I should make note of? Or Janet?
Lori Peretti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Yetto.
Alexis Kim.
Anyone else?
You got Diane Percy, right? I got Diane Percy.
Yes. All right. I am.
Laura's here too.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty on my end.
Laura Robertson.
Thank you.
I can account for all 15 people on the screen, Paul. I have it written down.
All right. I am just looking for the agenda, finance agenda. Here we go. I had to restart. No, sorry. That was on the 8th, correct? Finance agenda. Okay, got it. All right, we'll begin with item number 1, which is budget modifications. These are to purchase traffic speed signs and tasers, money coming from contingency and grants. Are there any comments?
So what grants would they be coming from?
One is, I don't have that worksheet in front of me. One is from, was it Tedisco? Janet, you have that?
There's a $10,000 grant from Tedisco towards the tasers.
Okay.
And there's a New York State grant for $10,000
For the tasers.
for the electronic fingerprint equipment.
Okay. And then what's the cost of the speed signs? And do we have that money?
They're asking to transfer the speed signs are $11,196. There's no money in the budget for traffic signs this year. So the full $11,196 would be a budget mod, which would be a contingency balance after these transfers of $5,570. And that breakdown should be on your budget mod attachment that I included with your agenda.
I just wanted to make sure that was accurate because we got that a few days ago. So do we have the money to do those now? I mean, it's something we've been talking about for years. We've got a couple. Do we need 4 more?
Well, the previous, let me just speak to the resolution when we brought it up, at the beginning of the year. I know all the town board members, as you've noted, speeding is a big issue.
Yeah.
Our constituents are really concerned about that. And at the beginning of the year, we tried to resolve a lot of the research that folks have been doing, try to move forward on behalf of constituents to get these signs purchased. So I went back and actually read the resolution where we bought the first one, and there was in that resolution, not the authority, but a commitment to buy the others. the other four. So I know it was talked about at highway. I know it was talked about at public safety. Fully understand the circumstances, the fiscal circumstances. But if there's contingency, I think it's a good investment. And given the groundwork and our, constituent desire for us to attend to speeding, our committee's recommendation was to move forward, as was public safety's.
If we decided not to go forward with the sale, there was a contingency that we purchased the first sign at a steep discount with the understanding that we would later purchase 4 more so long as there weren't any, technical specification changes. I'm not sure what that dollar amount would come out to be.
And by doing that, negotiating that contract and buying this many, we're getting a reduced price on all of them, buying them at this time. And I concur
Correct.
with what Rosemary said. This has been an issue in town. They have been effective in making people aware of their speed. It just helps, throughout the town, trying to control speed along with enforcement. But you're right, Denise, the money is, it's an issue.
Yeah.
We don't have it. So, okay.
There is also the money that was sort of slated, and that's been budgeted. Paul, you can speak to this. The money that we were going to purchase the additional pickup trucks, which the recommendation from the committee was not to do that. So I believe that was $130,000 or so that was budgeted. That's not going to be used. Perhaps that could be used towards the speed signs that, benefit the entire community with these signs.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the breakdown. Some of that is in parks, some is in highway, but I imagine I believe there's enough to cover those signs. But again, that was out of fund balance also. It wasn't budgeted.
The trucks were not a budgeted item?
Right. The trucks were taken
the
out of fund
trucks, yes.
balance. Instead of bonding for them, we took it out of fund balance.
Fund balance, right.
Not thinking we were going to take so much and then now be so reliant on it moving forward. So that's what I'm just saying. I mean, nobody is more in favor of these signs than I am. We had to fight to get them for all this time. I'm just trying to be cognizant of the fact that we are looking at very dark days. We were not in a good spot before the COVID crisis, and now moving forward, are we going to buy 4 signs? Or are we going to lay people? I'm just trying to. Everybody should get used to it because I'm going to say it about every item.
Yeah, no question. We're all very cognizant of that, and that's not even a close call. Like $10,000 for speed signs versus if you to finish
Keeping another part-time person, right?
Yeah,
Sure,
that's not even that's not even a close call. Of course, the bodies are the more important. But again, given the fact that we got a discounted rate, that the resolution included the potential purchase of the floor, that we're constantly hearing from constituents about signs. You've asked about them. Everyone's constantly asking. Your street, Rose. There's a number of streets that are constantly. So they're effective. We're Dean Street, etc. I think it's a good investment, but absolutely understand that we have to treat money very carefully.
Right. So the trucks weren't bonded. If it was bonded money and we didn't really rely, it wasn't going to come in anyway. But this is money that I just don't know. I know the fund balance is large. I mean, but.
Yep. No, $10,000 is or $11,000 is $11,000. Again,
do you want to split the difference and get 2 of them moving forward? Do you want to think about it, Rosemary? I mean,
Alexis, could we do that? I don't know what the terms of the agreement were that Alexis negotiated. That's what I mean. I almost feel like that's why I went back and looked at the resolution. But if we're committed in that initial agreement, then that's also a factor. If we're not, then I agree. It's a good compromise. We'll take a look at that. Maybe we can say that we'll go forward with the 2 if that's possible, or if the commitment in the contract or invoices for 4, then we could bring it back.
So what did you negotiate, Alexis? Because it's great that we're getting things negotiated and we're getting lower prices, but if you're negotiating something and then you're tying the town board's hands from making any decisions or maneuvers to try to save money or do things, then we're in a tough spot.
In fairness, she did this, you know,
She
months.
did it out of goodness of
Yeah.
heart. She's not, absolutely. She tried to get us a better deal, but she keeps doing this because she is trying to get us the best deals possible. But if we can't, then we don't have any maneuverability.
Right. No, but it was,
Yeah.
and I think she was doing, again, in good faith, because the
Of course
discussion
she was. Of course she
at
was.
both, no, I know, at public safety and at highway at that time was to purchase 5, or to start with 1, test it out, see how it felt. That, you know, public safety, the police have been very pleased with how it's worked. And so we said, we want to try the 1. And then the commitment was there, you know, to do and both committees. And that is, again, if you go back and read the resolution, it says we're buying 1 and we're going to get the other 4 now. So again, that's where I am. It doesn't explicitly give the authority to purchase the 5, but it says in the resolution, we're going to purchase 1, and the anticipation is that we'll purchase the other 4. And that resolution was passed by the town board, of course, at a time when we, you know, we're in a different circumstance.
Okay.
So again, I do think, you know, again, we did give her the go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't bind ourselves in so much as, I mean, I don't think they're going to sue us for, you know, $500. The Paul Sebesta set up the meeting with the representative, and then it was with the chief and with Ray. Paul, I don't think actually sat in on the meeting, but was involved in that entire process, Paul Sebesta, in finding us the best vendor to use. It's not, I mean, we can breach it. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's worth the cost of them to bring us.
Is there a contract, Alexis, that requires us to purchase 4 additional?
That's what.
Yeah, it was attached to the resolution. It was resolution 2020-59.
The resolution is our authorization. Is there a commitment to the company
to the resolution and incorporated? And it states in it that the list price. So we paid at that time.
I understand, but did we make a commitment in a contract to purchase 4 additional units?
We made a commitment that we would pay the difference. So we paid only, I'm looking at the discount, that we would pay back the discount offered on the purchase of the first price if we didn't proceed with the other 4. But like I said, I mean, I don't think it's an issue that needs to be determinative on whether or not we don't buy the 4 signs. We can always just say it's COVID, we can't do it. It's almost like a force majeure clause, like act of God. I mean, I don't know if it's ingenuous, but it's not the end of the world. And it was not, like I said, I'm not have any concerns about us being able to say in good faith, we don't have the money, we can't buy them. And originally we were going to buy 10. That was the discussion, highway. And then from 10, we said, let's start out with 5. And so instead of buying 5 all at once when we didn't know if we wanted all of these customizations, we said, give us just 1 to make sure we want it. And then we'll order the other 4 once we have a month or so to test it out.
If the town board wants, we can, you know, Alexis can ask, and if we can just purchase 2 and see where that puts us.
I think that would be great.
Okay, why don't we try that, Alexis?
And see what's the difference. I mean, I don't know if people have been promised them to come to their street. I know the folks on, you know, Rosemary, you alluded to it, is not my street, Rosendale Road. That's, you know, I know they're really concerned. The people who live over near the fatal crash, they've been asking for a while. They thought they were getting it in December. So absolutely. I mean, nobody's a bigger fan of them than me, but I just don't know.
Well, if
we buy less and we move them around, you know.
Okay, I will get back to you guys with the quote to attach. And if for some reason they come after us for the $400, you can take it out of my salary. It's gonna make
not to do that. We will do all the ones that we committed to. So obviously. Well, we have a lot more to do, talking about millions of dollars. So we figured out the $10,000.
All right, then I guess that's settled, to be continued. Alexis will negotiate further. So item B is, again, I bring up the sale of the Aqueduct Road property that's adjacent to the Recreation Center. The town board approved this revenue line in the 2020 budget, and It was at one point supposed to go to economic development. I keep asking if they've discussed it, and apparently they still have not. So I don't know if there's no interest or what, but I again bring this up because now's the time. Actually, property sales are still strong, from what I hear, and it'd be good not to leave a hole again. I think for the third year or fourth year, I don't know how many times we've sold this property.
I would like,
It does.
Paul, I would like at a minimum to continue the conversation on it. I would like to be able to get an idea of what we could actually get for it. When we originally started talking about this, I thought it was a great idea, but then Laura, we even talked about perhaps putting the solar panels over there. So I'm just not sure the quality of the land and everything else that we could get what we think for it. But if we can.
Well, you don't have to accept an offer. If you don't get what you want, you reject the offer.
Now, Paul, Sebastian, I have a question. What are the financial implications in terms of an audit when we have repeatedly budgeted for a revenue stream that we never actually accrue? So that's one of my concerns, is that we've carried this forward for a period of years as a land sale.
Right.
Whether it was a budget plug in the past or whatever it was, whether the intention really was to sell it and it never materialized. But that's something that we need to consider is from an audit standpoint, you shouldn't budget for revenue you're not going to accrue.
And we have that in a couple of spots, but I believe that we did have the intention of selling this. That was always my intention. And we've talked about it for a lot longer than it's even been in the budget. That was always my intention, that this land was something that we could do something with, especially when people started developing over there, that would be something. Now, what we were going to do with it, we may differ on that. But the original idea was we would start to sell off those parcels so that we could build a pool in a different part of this town. That probably seems impossible right now. But I certainly think it was always my intention of selling that property.
If the supervisor suggested,
come up on our last agenda at our economic and historical preservation meeting, but we certainly should put it on, Laura, for the agenda on our next meeting. We've been meaning to talk about it. I'm not sure why we haven't.
I can put it on the next meeting.
Okay, but I think what Paul is saying is he'd like the finance committee to take action. Is that what, Paul, you're asking?
Well, the town board basically in the budget is recognizing revenue for the sale. That this decision in my mind was made. If you're having second thoughts, that's fine. It's really, we can't just keep budgeting for it though, and we should really reverse that revenue estimate and appropriate fund balance, because that's essentially what we are doing and would have done if we didn't have that revenue.
So it's just a bookkeeping function is what you're saying.
Yeah, and this continual estimation that it doesn't materialize is not good. The controller definitely gets down on that. Colony got slapped for that several years ago. I forget the circumstance. It had something to do with the landfill, as I recall, when they were closing it. But it's not good. Well, we certainly can't budget for it again. We just need to make a decision. It's spring.
What price
Yep.
did you put? What figure are we carrying for this property?
I believe it was $40,000.
$40,000. Where did
Right.
that number come from? How long have we had that number? Did we get
It was slightly higher than that, and it was reduced because and could we get 40? I have no idea. It's over 10 acres. It's not ideal land. It's most suitable to the adjacent landowner. But either way, it's fine with me. I just, we either need to make a decision to sell it or make a decision not to sell it.
So we had gotten an offer and we refused it. It was on the market at one time.
No, it was never on the market. I think there needs still to be some work in marrying an existing parcel we have with the parcel that we bought from the county. We paid $12,000 and purchase this property along with some other vacant parcels with the intention of selling it at that time under Supervisor Landry.
So it sounds like it's got to go back to economic development to find out if they need to put these parcels together and move forward.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's been my recommendation, and it would be the case that I would bring to economic development, not to sell the land. We can have that discussion in economic development, or you guys could have it at finance. Happy to help with the case for either.
So is the decision to move it to economic development for further discussion?
I'm in favor of that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess,
It makes sense.
and that's fine. I see these revenue items, and if there needs to be movement in one direction or another. Okay. So moving on, item C, discussion regarding the 2019 year-end financial summary. I did a little more work on this, and unfortunately didn't get it. Only got it out fairly recently, an hour ago actually, in hopes that we would be talking about it now. And if I can, I'll tell you the next meeting I'm gonna be in my office because I'm having some technical difficulties. So the document I sent out, here we go, that previously had the general and highway fund balance history, I've included on that tab 2005 through 19, sewer 1, sewer 6, and water. Went back to 2017. I'd like to actually build in more years of history, but if you have that in front of you, you can see how we've in the prior years we had been using no fund balance for quite some time, and in 18 we started in Sewer District 1 with $22,000 appropriation, and then in 19 $170,006, and in 20 we dropped it to $142,000 in Sewer 6 and $92,000 in Water 1 to balance the budget. And then you can see the fund balance, even with those levels of appropriation, we didn't actually appropriate it. So in Sewer District 6, 19, we ended up closing just slightly under the 18 fund balance of $2.5 million. It went down $25,000, and instead of appropriating 170, we basically appropriated 25,000. So that was a decent year. And in Water District 1, we picked up almost a couple $100,000. So that's all great. We're going into 20 now with a higher level of appropriation of fund balance that didn't exist in Water 1. The other issue is in Sewer District 6, our issue with the bio waste. I sent there's another tab, 2020 projected revenues and expenses. I looked at the areas that are under pressure that I mentioned before: mortgage tax, sales tax, interest. Well, the bio waste, I took the ESG projection. I originally had projected 500,000. They came back with a lower number, and using their model, I'm looking at probably if we came up with $162,000 this year, we'd probably be doing well. So there's going to be a shortfall of $368,000, I'm estimating. And I kind of used that was with the I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at it, but I kind of used the section of ESG's estimation that kind of replicates where we are now, and it's not good news, but that's the reality of it. So Sewer 6 is under the most pressure in the special districts, but there is a healthy fund balance of 2.5 million. So that we are appropriating 142, and that was at the 530,000 of bio waste revenue. So if you had the $360,000 loss to the 142, we're really down $500,000 on a $2.5 million fund balance. So, we're definitely not in a deficit situation, but it's putting a strain on the fund balance. We're dipping into it pretty significantly. And so other than that, on the projected revenues and expenses, I did add up, the highlights of 20 showing over $500,000 in the general fund that I got an update on mortgage tax. It isn't looking as bad as I had thought. Unfortunately, sales tax that I was more comfortable with is a little bleaker than I thought. About a third, 950,000 of our 3.3 million is the Metroplex money that's subject to fluctuation. And I called the county today, and based on the first 5 months, they're seeing a reduction of 30%. So that computes to $290,000 over the course of the year in sales tax, which is much more significant than I was thinking before. The other figures in the general fund, $92,000 in foregone or lost interest earnings. Interest is tanked, so that brings us to 532 in the general fund. And in 21, in 20, the retirement rates are set. The effect of the retirement rates that I spoke of before is on 21. So I added those along with the health insurance increase that we could experience this year because we are partially self-insured. But I think 21 is going to be the killer year. So if you add the impact of 20 and the 21 impact, and then recognize some of the revenues that'll come back, which are fines. They're down now. I suspect, as time goes on, our traffic fines will pick up. Sales tax will come back. I added back in half of it. We're off 635,000 combined with some recovery, thrown in there, which is a good chunk of change. It's approaching 9%, and that's with no salary increases and flat budgets otherwise. These are really rough projections, but it gives you a feel of the hardship we face. The highway fund is pretty much the same story. It's mostly interest income there, retirement and health insurance, and sewer and water. They're pretty easy to deal with aside from the bio waste and sewer 6. So definitely have our work cut out for us.
I have a question on the
Sure.
health insurance projection for 2021. I know for the year 2020, it was, what did it end up being? 12%?
It started at 19 and we got them down to 17, screaming and kicking.
All right. I
Yes.
get it. All right. So what are we thinking what the percentage increase is going to be in 2021? You're thinking it's going to stay on that trend, that it's not going to be below 10% increase?
I do think it's going to be on that trend. I thought if it wasn't for COVID, that's what I'm hearing. I don't think anyone knows it lags. So with this new program we're in, there's like a 3+ month tail on the claims. So it's a little early to even forecast, but you know what ICU costs are.
Right. Paul, every one of these initiatives that the governor announces, eating co-pays for first responders, that's fallen to the plans. There's no money at the state level to pay them back.
It's going to be socialized. It'll be socialized.
Right. All of the getting the telemed up and running, getting all of this stuff done, paying higher rates for telemed because then regular
waiving of fees, waiving of test fees and all sorts of
Right.
things that, they're doing all these good deeds, but they're not free.
They're not free.
They're
So
absolutely
I
not.
don't
They're
see any
not free.
way that we're going to see less than 10%, but we can keep our fingers crossed.
No, I can't imagine less than 15%. First of all, that 2% that they didn't want to give up, they gave up, but they haven't forgot about it. It's in there. They smooth these numbers out over years, so they've got that tucked away for a future. They'll build that in down the road, and it's coming at a time when we're going to get hit hard otherwise. So, I do tend to be conservative and estimate high. So you can, even if you took 25% off these numbers, they're huge.
They are huge.
I'd rather err on the side of caution and not and give you good news down the road. That's how most department heads operate. But these are significant numbers. There are some savings in fuel. They're going to probably carry on throughout this year, and I'd say next year too. I don't see any. There's a lot of fuel oil. That's about the only good news. Fuel costs. So I don't know if there are any other questions regarding item C. I didn't want to get too deep into it. I do want to incorporate all this into kind of a budget projection. And factor in our contractually committed salaries that, this doesn't even touch on that. It's typically upwards of $200,000 in the general fund. So, we usually have a hard enough time covering salaries and health insurance without all of these other, issues. So that's the problem.
Okay, so you gave us all the bad news. We see that in all your numbers. Are we going to get down to E, where we're going to discuss what we're going to do to try to stem this tide, and what things we can do to try to reverse it as best as we can?
I think I moved through D with impacts, the overview and the impact. So I kind of went right through C and D. And I'm going to continue to update these. Like I say, I continually get updates on mortgage tax. It's not as bad as I initially thought. January, February, March, which are always not good months, were slightly worse than I thought. I saw a trend going down, but April pulled back. So, we just have to continually monitor, I think, is the right approach. Try to keep our finger on the pulse.
Paul, the sales tax numbers are abysmal. I mean, I sent you the document from the comptroller today. I mean, we've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, no, it's fortunately through November, more than 2/3 of our money is fixed. We're in that,
right.
But we're in the last year of the agreement with the county sales tax agreement. What they'll do December 1st it's actually November 1st. Is yet to be determined. Right. They may feel they need to keep more. I don't know. But the bulk of, we are in a good position there, but still that slightly less than 1/3 is down 30%. Will it come back? I don't know. I hope so. Yeah. I think people are anxious to go out and spend money. I am. So yes,
let's
moving
talk
to
about
D.
The things that are under our control in E. We got hiring.
Right.
You said multi-year projections. The way I see it, it comes down to our bio waste, trying to get that negative number or get that positive number up to where we, need to, and costs. What else do we have that we can control ourselves?
Right. So on E, I did make some suggestions. I put out a proposal to the purchasing policy to limit discretionary equipment spending on the low end. All that's subject to bidding has to go through the town board anyway, but the discretionary amounts, I suggested pulling back, and I think the supervisor, I believe, supported that. And I don't know if it was in the exact form or if there were some proposed modifications to my proposal, but there's that, the hiring freeze. The supervisor just issued a memorandum regarding the hiring freeze. I don't know, Yasmin, do you want to speak to those?
Sure, yes. So we'll bring it to the purchasing policy. So Paul Sebesta shared, I think it was about a week ago, correct, Paul? A schedule that showed what the potential savings could be if we implemented his suggested changes to the purchasing policy. So essentially, and if I'm remembering correctly, it just brings back what the thresholds were prior to the recent change that we made to the handbook. So
Yeah,
it's not overly onerous
basically.
to department heads. It's just bringing us back to a point where we were. And I think the overall feeling behind that and reason behind doing that is just that, we have to pay attention to every expenditure that we're making now. So certainly if it's something that a department needs and it's going to be helpful to them in carrying out their essential work, they can still bring it to finance and get that approval. But it's just, ensuring that everyone's very mindful of every item that they bring to finance and just making sure that we're as careful as possible going forward.
I support wholeheartedly.
Yeah, agreed. I think it sends a good message. It makes people think more, be more thoughtful about spending, which is what we should all be doing. So I support it as well. Thanks, Paul.
Absolutely.
Okay, and on the hiring freeze, I know Matt Yeto mentioned some concern over the staffing at the water treatment plant with the water treatment plant operators, and we do have some mandatory staffing levels. That's one concern that we may have to look at separately, but he may be able to address that better. But we do have, we have staffing.
So yeah,
level.
so I would like to talk about the hiring freeze and what our policies or what the parameters around the hiring freeze is going to be. Is it everyone? Are there going to be some exceptions for essential staff? And what would we define as essential staff? Or I think we need to work on this a little bit more and define who would be exempt from this. Matt Yeto has currently 2 openings at Public Works. One is a water treatment plant operator. Paul, you alluded to, we have baseline staff levels that we need to keep over there. He's got a second one that's in his office. I told him it's very unlikely we will fill that position. And that's my position on this. I just don't, if I'm asking questions about speed signs, I certainly can't support moving forward with another person in an office right now. I know they're very overworked, but I just don't see it in the near future filling that position.
Yeah, same here at Highway. I know Ray's been carrying, I think, 4. He's not on the call right now, but he's got 4 openings, and we've been talking since the beginning, and he's been completely on board with understanding that doing more with less is going to be required.
So in my mind, it's water, sewer, and I guess we can have a conversation about the police. But I'm not sure anywhere else would really fit into emergency staff or mandatory staffing levels or things like that.
Right. Yep. You're correct.
Okay.
So essential work, water, sewer, highway, and police department. And within water and sewer, I did answer, Matt did ask me that question actually, because he had the 2 items that he was looking, or 2 positions he was looking to fill. And to the water, I think it's a water treatment plant operator, if I'm correct. I believe we have to have certain licenses, licensed individuals that are manning the plants. So with regards to that, we have to fulfill those obligations. So despite, a general hiring freeze, there are going to be exceptions that we're going to make to that, just to ensure that the essential work is taking place, and then we're also fulfilling, the obligations that we have to fulfill.
Okay.
How Denise and Matt, how are we handling that with a person down currently?
They're trying to fill it. He's been trying to fill it. He puts it on the agenda. People are working more hours, and he's been trying to manage with folks. So, Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, so the gentleman that we want to replace retired last month.
It was the
So
guy.
right now we have an operator working by himself every other day. And that operator was due to retire probably a month and a half ago, but he's holding out right now. He's going to retire too. So if I don't have someone to backfill the current retirement, I may be able to get by with the reduced staff in the short term, but when that other person retires, I will be in real trouble. And I need to have someone down there that would learn the plant prior to the other operator retiring.
Are you required, and I don't have an understanding, are you required to have a certain number of people? Are they only allowed to work a certain number of hours, et cetera? And if so, how are you covering that now?
They work underneath the license of the other operator, but it becomes an issue when you have people taking vacations, people having days off. It's difficult to cover and have the proper operators on staff. I mean, we could probably get by with what we have right now, but like I said, the other one's retiring. So when he retires, we'll be completely in trouble, and I won't have that period to train and bring a new applicant on up to speed fast enough to be able to have them be able to run on their own.
So normally you'd like to have, is it 4 people and you're down to 3 and you're proposing basically with the retirement to sort of, stay at 3? Is that correct?
I think so we would go up to 4, back to 4, which we had. And then I could go back down to 3 if it's the right 3 people, but I can't lose that other person who's close to retirement and then try to find someone. I mean, this may be a moot point. We're looking right now because we're trying to get an operator. I may not be able to find one this month. I mean, it may carry into next month, but we are. I'd still like to keep actively looking because I need that position, and you just can't pick them up off a list because the list doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And the higher licenses, people don't want to leave where they are because they have all that other time. They've worked their way up to get to where they are with that license, and they don't want to then give away whatever benefits they've acquired at their current municipality where they're working.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. That was great. So I guess what I'm proposing is to have a larger conversation. We have only got about 15 minutes left to this meeting about who or what positions within each department would be exempt from this. I don't think I'm willing to say a blanket highway, police, water and sewer, engineering. I just don't. I think we've got to drill down a little bit more.
I agree with you, Denise. Right. We can't give it as a blanket. I totally agree. And I think also, Matt needs an operator. And, I don't want Matt to feel that there's any restriction on him trying to find an operator. So, Matt, you got to find the person you need. And that's a very important position, as we just heard and as he said. And if department heads feel that they do need someone, then they're going to have to come and plead their case like Matt did.
Yeah. So perhaps to that point, each department head should report on, the positions that they, make an argument and make a case for, positions they feel are essential, cannot be, that should not be subject to the hiring freeze, and bring that forth, and that can be considered.
Yeah, I think if they want to do that, each department can give us that, or those big 3 can give us that. And we as the town board can have a conversation about it based on the pieces of paper they give us.
I will do that. I think that's for everybody to do.
Okay, were there any other issues that would fall under our response that need to be discussed? Yasmin, did you have other items to throw in there?
I think we covered all of them. I know you spoke to the multi-year budget projection. We want to put a 3-year together because 5-year projection is just, it's too hard to quantify and to project out that far. There are too many variables that could change. So Paul and I both agreed. I think a 3-year budget projection is doable at this time, and that way we can have some idea of, you know, what the financial picture is going to look like going forward. So as we're getting updated figures and time progresses, and we can really see the true impact of what this pandemic has done, it's just a prudent step at this point to try and get some kind of picture of, you know, what the next 3 years are going to look like.
That's an excellent idea, Yasmin. So Paul Sebesta, are you going to be able to give us, because there's really 2 separate items here, as I mentioned last month, and I'll mention again this month and next month and the month after. There is what we did in this budget and where it left us financially. A lot of the things that you just ticked off are really budget items and holes within that budget. And then our COVID response and the costs associated with our COVID response and the hits that we're going to take as it relates to the economy and COVID. So are you able to decipher those things, and how we're going to figure, you know, some of them we may recoup, we may be able to recoup some of the costs. Other things, they were just the deficit that was built into the budget.
Yeah, well, certainly, you know, we have to start by replicating the appropriation that we began with, unless we can offset it with tax increases or, you know, other revenue streams. See, that's the problem with appropriating fund balance. It doesn't go away. Once you appropriate it, you have to replicate that the following year, and in most cases add to it. And so it's hard to back off of, and that was always my concern when we get up to the numbers we're approaching. But yeah, I'm continually working on putting that together. I'm gonna have to, you know, now that our annual report is going to be filed tomorrow, it's done. I would mention, I don't know if anyone noticed, but the fund balance in the general fund, one of the items that was that I identified as being a timing issue with the boiler grant, actually was pulled out of the general fund balance and moved into capital projects where the expenditure was. So the fund balance, the projection or the actual year-end fund balance dropped approximately $75,000 because of that. Still very healthy, but I just want to point that out. And tomorrow we'll submit to New York State our annual update document. And now that that's done, the audit field work's done. There'll be some follow-up questions, but that's consumed, you know, a bit of time. So now it's time to really begin the 21 budget process. There's a lot of, you know, initial work, and this all falls into that. It's one and the same. It's
right.
a part of it, you know.
Yeah, and I think starting early is definitely something that's going to be done, and will be a good move. But I do want to make the point, we are not nearly as in bad a financial picture as many of the cities around us are in. So I'm sure everyone sees the headlines that are out there with, you know, layoffs, and it just is a very bleak picture. We are very lucky that our financial picture, even though we are concerned, and I think we should be, we do have a very healthy fund balance in the general and highway fund, and even across our other funds, as you know, you can see on that schedule.
Absolutely.
Circulated today. And so Paul's absolutely right. We can't just rest on that. We can't get too comfortable with these figures, because you never know what might happen. And this year is the perfect case of that. But
and that's an excellent point. We worked for I say it all the time. When I first started here 11 years ago, we did not have this level of fund balance. And folks would get up month after month. We used to meet twice a month. There were 2 privilege of the floors a month then. And every time we would hear about the concerns about the fund balance and what it would mean for us moving forward. And we worked very hard to address that. And so all of this, that we have a very healthy fund balance, I take great pride in. However, we're churning through it pretty quickly now. And, you know, the nice way to put it is the rainy day fund. Well, it's pouring right now. So we are going to see a lot of big changes quickly.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, if I can address a couple of financial impacts to the reopening memo that the supervisor issued today, last night, late, but dated today. I have some concerns with what's called non-essential yard waste pickup. Is that intending to continue, or is that going to cease?
What are you asking, Paul?
Is the yard waste pickup, it's classified as non-essential on the document that was issued. And my question is, does that mean, to me, that implies that we're not going to be picking up yard waste?
You'll have to share that with me because what I saw was different. So why don't you share that with us?
I think what he's referring to is there was a chart describing the essential to non-essential services. And so yard waste pickup is deemed non-essential service. So it's subject to the 50% workforce restriction. That's one of the, so it's not that, I think the decision, I know it was announced that yard waste pickup would remain at random basis because we didn't hire the temporary laborers.
Correct. We're not moving forward with that, and we're not zone pickup was supposed to start this week, and we're not doing that. We're working at a lesser capacity and continue with random pickup.
Okay, I only mention it because it's a $300,000 revenue, $1,000 revenue line in our budget, and it is a fee, a user fee. And if it was to cease or people felt they weren't having the service, I think we might run into trouble charging the fee.
Understood, but it's been continuing. They started early. It's continuing on random, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But good point. If there's an issue, if we have to, stop it for whatever reason because folks have to be doing something else, I'll bring it to your attention so we can, be aware and address it accordingly.
They're still going to do the yard waste pickup. It just might not be on as regular basis, like once a week. They used to come twice a week, and it might be every 10 days, right?
Correct.
As long as we can justify that $300,000 fee, then it won't have an impact. The other item that caught my eye is that we talked for quite length about $5,000 in speed signs, and the capability for personnel, and I'm not opposed to antibody testing, but to do them off hours, even on the weekend, may end up costing well over $10,000. And I question whether that is financially feasible, but I mean, it's been offered. People that are going to do this, many of them have minimum hour requirements. They'll get 3 and 4 hours to go get a antibody test on their own time, and that will be very costly. I would hope that we could work with the department heads and allow them to go, during the day or make some accommodation as opposed to pay a minimum of 3 or 4 hours to have an antibody test. So I don't know if that cost was anticipated, but it's a significant cost. It would buy all the speed signs plus.
That's a good point, Paul. And that's something that is actually being worked out currently is, if you can go during working hours as opposed to on the weekend, accommodations are being made for that. So yes, that's a good point. And the benefit of it, not only to add to the statewide numbers, if people choose to voluntarily share, their diagnoses, of course, not required, want to stress that. But we'll be able to judge just from our own community, so to speak, of, employees here, what kind of herd immunity we have. So that'll give us a little bit more of a better picture as to, what immunity level we have as we're considering bringing everyone back potentially to 100%.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I mean, the concept is fine, but the way it reads is we will either provide you paid leave for the purpose of doing so on your day off or work with department heads so that, technically they're authorized to on their own go and submit for hours worked. there's no approval process that I read. So I just throwing that out there. If we can nip it in the bud and do it differently and save $10,000, just something to consider.
So, Paul, we have a relationship with Well Now. Does Well Now do something for us, the drug test or something?
Yeah, we have used them.
I know they're offering the test. I went and got it. Can we ask to work out them coming to town hall or something?
Possibly. It's an urgent care center. They accept CDPHP. It's not. We were trying to work out drug testing through them and had used them, but we don't have an extensive relationship. But if you want us to see if we can get them in to do some kind of a clinic, that'd be, we can look into that.
It might pay for itself, right?
Well, as opposed to, yeah.
Right.
As opposed to the other scenario we mentioned.
They have to do it because they would know how many people they could see a day, as opposed to hit or miss. One day is 200, the next day is 50.
Oh, it wouldn't cost us anything. We would.
No, I know it
set them.
I know.
Yeah, it's just like our flu shot clinic that we've had for several years now. They love to do it. They come in and knock off 30, 40, 50.
Exactly. They know they can count
inoculation.
Right. So I just had one question along those same lines. And
that's a good idea.
Yasmin, you just talked about it. I read your memo that came at midnight last night saying something like the results would go to your office. Why wouldn't they go to HR? Why wouldn't they go to Sebesta?
They can. We
right.
I mean,
why would you even want them in your office?
Well, the thinking is, we want to make sure that it's kept confidential. But if that can be ensured, then
I think
we can do that. But it has.
We trust that every other thing is kept confidential by going to Sebesta's office. So.
Yeah, they're unlocked their medical files are separate from the employment files. So. They're unlocked and key. I mean, if there's some reporting, follow up that we need to do, I can accommodate that too. I know all this information is of value to the Department of Health and County Health.
Certainly.
So we never really came to a resolution about paying people to have this test done and paying for their time. Right, Paul? That's your concern, is that could get very costly.
That is my concern, that the way I read it, an employee has the ability to go whenever they choose and have a test done and submit for a minimum number of hours. But I may be wrong, but that's how I read it.
I think the safeguard there of your fear is that, supervisor can't change or grant employees benefits. That's a town board action. So I think that this is more just encouragement, like you should be going and getting antibodies. I can't speak for Supervisor Syed, but I think that you wouldn't interpret this memo as a binding policy and permanent in nature, and that in the event that you thought it would be incurring expenses, then I think it would need to be a town board policy.
Well, then you may want to notify the employees of that. I just am concerned that employees will read this and say, oh, great, it's my day off, it's the weekend, I'll just go get my antibody tested and then submit 3 hours, or even if they submit 1 hour or a half hour.
Well, Paul, why don't you, or we could do it jointly, or you can do it from Comptroller's office. Why don't we circulate a memo stating as such, and whatever revisions that you'd want worked in. And then in the meantime, Denise, your idea was a great one. Let's see if we can bring Well Now in and do testing on site.
Might as well try.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They've got the test.
Good.
Right.
Everybody here's got health insurance. So.
Yep. No, makes perfect sense.
Right. It doesn't take long, but it's all a matter of when you get it. I was there for an hour and there was nobody else there. Some people were saying the day before they were there for 6 hours. So.
Are we still in a state of emergency for the town?
It was extended the other day.
Okay, so Alexis, are the supervisor's powers any different in this state of emergency regarding benefits and town employees?
Well, actually, the state of emergency expires on the 15th. So we have 3 days left. and it's yet to be determined whether it will be extended. So typically, one of the indicators that I look for is, other surrounding towns are they extending their states of emergency? Is the county extending its state of emergency? And I believe theirs also expires on the same exact date. So we've been trending, with the county, with the state. So that's yet to be determined. We do have a draft working document in the event that it is extended. And then regarding, special powers or extra powers or anything to that effect, Alexis can jump in on.
Yeah, and just to give you an update, Schenectady County issued their extension of the declaration of a state of emergency yesterday for another 30 days. With respect to emergency powers, they would have to be in the form of an emergency order issued pursuant to Section 202 or 24(1) of executive law. And pursuant to Governor Cuomo's new executive orders, they actually have to go through approval through the New York State Department of Health. So you can't just issue an emergency order during the COVID pandemic saying, I'm going to suspend this law or, expand this benefit. All of those funnel through upwards. And then I think there's a publishing requirement. But Yasmin, I don't think you've only issued one or two. And this memo is not an emergency order.
Right. Yep. It's just a declaration of a local state of emergency, but in terms of the emergency orders, there were just 2 successive 5-day orders. So when all of this began for a period of 10 days, there were 2 emergency orders issued, and they were, pretty generic in nature. Again, they were approved by the Department of Health, and it was regarding closure of playgrounds and just ensuring public safety, but didn't feel the need to continue issuing emergency orders. It seems like everyone's following state issued guidelines, so that didn't seem like a necessity.
So our fans are waiting for us in our next meeting. Our regulars are asking where we are.
We lost track of time.
Can I wrap this up? Quickly? And we do have 2 sets of minutes, April 14th and April 23rd. Can I get a vote to approve the April 14th finance agenda meeting minutes? All in favor?
We'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. All in favor?
We have to have a second.
Aye.
Did we have a
Aye.
second?
Any opposed?
I think Paul made the motion, right? Yasmin, you're a
Oh,
second.
Paul made the motion. Okay. I'm sorry. Yep.
That's okay.
Paul made the motion. I'm the second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that's moving forward. And the April 23rd minutes, to approve the minutes that were circulated last Friday for April 23rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a change for those minutes. Page 2, you and I, Paul, were discussing revenues and budgeting, and we got talking about the police department. And it said in there that with police department directives, they're not stopping people. That was not what I said. There was no directive that the police cannot enforce traffic laws. So,
Right. Where is that exactly in the second paragraph?
Yep. Second page.
Yep, second page.
I had it here on my phone. I'll have to pull it up again.
He further stated the police weren't issuing tickets,
Right.
losing precedent. Okay. All the ticket, the issuance is down significantly. I agree, and no one meant to say
they weren't refusing to write tickets. That the police department's directive due to COVID-19 pandemic prevent traffic stops. That's not correct. It does not prevent traffic stops. There was no directive preventing traffic stops.
Okay, so we'll strike that. You want them recirculated and then
You want the public to think that the rules are not being enforced, which they are.
no. My point was that revenues were down, and you discussed that the traffic volume was way down. It's starting to pick up. I noticed, probably most people do, but there's no cars, there's no tickets.
I understand that, but the way that reads, it said that there was a directive that prevented traffic stops, and that's not true.
Okay, so we'll strike that. I'm just unsure that do we need to recirculate this and vote on it, or just strike that sentence?
You just vote on the amended minutes.
Just strike it.
Okay. Okay. So, do I have a second to amend the minutes, striking the directive comment?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And I had a couple other minor things, but I'll hold them for next time. They're not urgent. So I will call a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we're done. Thank you.